Hello and welcome to the Sensibly Speaking podcast. This is Chris Shelton, the critical thinker at large.
This is Ruth McLeod, the Southern Atheist.
And this is our first post-holiday Thanksgiving episode. And while we had a bit lighter fare last week getting into the holiday season on purpose, we wanted to kind of keep it a bit light. There have been some really tragic circumstances this last week that simply can't be ignored. And we're not going to go on some rant-filled episode right now where we're going to rail against guns and talk about how horrible everything is.
Although I kind of feel like I want to.
And I kind of do too, but I'm actually not really in the mood to just rant right now.
Yeah.
We did a little bit of research, looked into some things, and we're going to talk specifically about the shooting that happened last Friday in Colorado Springs here at the Planned Parenthood in Colorado here. Because this is something that has larger implications and needs to be discussed more, and I figure there are some sensible things we can talk about with this. In regards to the shooting this week in San Bernardino, this is still a developing story, and as far as I'm concerned, the most sensible thing that we can do about that right now is hold off on really talking about it much at all because we don't know much about it.
I know that for me on my social medias, Facebook, Twitter, things like that, you see a lot of, just a lot of emotions going on right now. And I completely agree. I think that we need to kind of step back and just wait for some more information before we really get into that one.
Very much so. I originally thought that there were 3 shooters. I just found out today there was only 2.
Right.
The nationality of the shooters may or may not be a factor. We have absolutely no idea right now.
Right. Yeah, we don't know.
Doesn't
much.
appear that it is, but we don't know anything for certain. So I don't really particularly feel like putting a lot of conjecture out there, especially not hate-filled conjecture. I wish more people on social media felt the same way because a perusal of my Facebook wall is just bad news and a lot more. I don't want to use the word hateful because that's a bit too strong, but there are assumptions being made about things that should not be being made.
There's a lot of venom.
Yes.
Is what I'd like to...
That's a good word.
How I've been categorizing it all day and ever since yesterday. And I'm very frustrated that this is our normal.
Yeah, very much so.
I don't want it to be, and I think as long as we do stay shocked and horrified by it, it won't be normal. Unfortunately, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Agreed. So with regards to what happened here in Colorado, we will get to that. But first, we actually wanted to talk a little bit first about this last week's good news, and because it was a holiday this last week, and let's not forget that. We can also, this whole episode is we're going to be talking about this stuff, but I want to actually get this off to the right foot because the fact of the matter is that there's a lot more good than bad going on out there. Yeah,
we're kind of just going to do a negativity sandwich here.
That's right.
Kind of start on a low note, be a little happy, and then go back to being on a low note.
Yeah,
maybe we'll go back up.
Pretty much. But honestly, folks, don't let your Facebook, social media, Twitter, Tumblr, Imager feeds bring you down unnecessarily over this holiday season because there's a lot to be thankful for as we went over last week. There's a lot to be happy about. Yeah. And in this last week, for example, Ruth went down to Louisiana, saw her dad. Yeah. What happened?
Well, I learned a very important lesson.
Pray tell.
When an old redneck says, "Here, try this. I got it from an old hillbilly," and he hands you a mason jar full of clear liquid, don't swig it.
Probably sage advice there.
I took it, and this is my father giving this to me. I took a swig. I think I died for about 30 seconds. Came back to life, had a full-grown beard. And I asked my father, what did he just give me? And, of course it was moonshine.
Of course.
And it was 180 proof.
90% alcohol.
180% proof.
That is pure insanity. Liquid insanity.
Needless to say, I was a bit hungover actually on Turkey Day.
I can imagine.
So wow. It was other than that, it was a very good trip. Very first meal I had there was a po' boy. and, you pick up gumbo somewhere along the way, and I brought back a whole case of pralines, and, I've got my gumbo base, and I've got my crystal hot sauce, so I'm going to be good for a while.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I was lucky to not be completely hungover because I drank far too much over the weekend, but had an amazingly good time with friends.
Good.
Yeah, here in Colorado. Spent the Thanksgiving with them. We kind of were out in the boonies down in Larkspur. Yeah, I think that's where it is, down south of here. And just had a great old time. The snow came down, so we sort of pretended to be snowed in and watched a lot of movies and ate turkey and all that kind of thing. So
just we're cozy.
Yeah. So I actually had a really, really nice Thanksgiving this year.
I know that the Hub had their Thanksgiving dinner on Thursday, and I think they had just under 30 people go there.
Oh,
and
nice.
Just like last year, a lot of people just didn't have anywhere else to go, or they usually spend it by themselves, and they're fine with that. And you know what? If you're more of a homebody person and you like the idea of talking to people online instead of traveling somewhere and sitting through an awkward dinner, that's cool. Just as long as you try to keep in mind that this is supposed to be a quote-unquote magical time of year. And I actually do really agree with that statement. That is a magical time of year. I mean,
exactly.
It's supposed to be a time of tidings of good peace and will and all that. And I feel it. I definitely feel it. And I'm happy that I was able to go down and see family. I'm glad that you were able to spend some time with friends. I'm glad a lot of our friends that, from what I've been talking to, have had a very good experience. And I'm just happy for the holidays.
Excellent.
Just a happy person right now.
Excellent. I can't believe 30 hateful atheists actually managed to be in a room together all at once giving thanks for something.
I can't believe we organized the damn thing with all of our atheist ridiculousness.
Well, that's, I don't know that it's only...
They always say it's like herding cats, but somehow we managed to put on a damn potluck.
Wow.
Well, I say we, the royal we. I was not actually involved.
Right.
What did I do with this chair? I think I fell out a little bit.
All right. All right. Now we're going to, let's get serious again. So let's dig in here.
Negativity sandwich.
Yeah, here we go. Now, last Friday here in Colorado Springs, which is about, 45 minutes south of Denver
just
proper?
about.
It's the next major city south of Denver. Mm-hmm. A guy named Robert L. Deere Jr.
Dillhole. That's his name.
What?
Let's just call him Dillhole.
Okay. So Mr. Deere...
Mr. Dillhole.
Entered the Planned Parenthood clinic in Colorado Springs, and he had a semi-automatic rifle with him. He killed 3 people, and he wounded 9 others.
Yeah.
Now, this attack lasted and ended up in a bit of a standoff.
Right.
I mean, the TV came out. This guy was I guess, holed up in there. And
Hours.
Yeah.
Hours.
He was not one of these types who goes in, shoots the place up, and then points the gun at himself. He got caught, and they took him into custody.
Yeah, the whole incident started at about noon and ended about 5 o'clock. Mm-hmm. So if that kind of gives you an idea of how much of a performance this whole thing was.
Right. This man has been a long-time anti-Planned Parenthood advocate. There's history of him having gone and put glue in the locks and things like that. He lived out in Charleston, North Carolina, and he was an anti-Planned Parenthood protester out there. He's been married 3 times. Very, very religious fellow, apparently. But according to what the reporters have gotten from his ex-wives, he was an abuser and a fairly violent man.
Wow, that's a shock.
Yeah. His anti-Planned Parenthood rhetoric is years old. Now, a very, very important part of this is that after his arrest, he was heard to be saying no more baby parts to the investigators and law enforcement officials who took him into custody, thus giving the idea right now, on the best knowledge that we have, that what motivated him to carry out this shooting had to do with having listened to some of the rhetoric that's going on out there about how Planned Parenthood sells baby parts. As we have debunked on this show and has been debunked thoroughly, completely, and utterly in the media for months now, I believe.
I can't believe we have to keep saying it.
It is annoying as one word that comes to mind. But here you have an instance where the message didn't get through to somebody. And now this guy didn't get a lot of messages through to him anyway.
Yeah.
He was pretty, what word do I want to use?
He was a dill hole.
He did not have his faculties fully available to him, it looks like, for many, many years now.
Yeah.
And so he took this anti-Planned Parenthood rhetoric and some of the violent rhetoric against it, which we're going to go over in this show, and he took this to heart, and he decided to be a man of action and not words, and he was going to go do something about it. And that was, it was bad. Yeah.
I'm telling you, just dill hole.
Dill hole.
Like,
okay.
It could be used.
Now,
Cocksucker. Whatever. I don't care.
I want to highlight who the victims of this shooting were, because it's important to understand that, you know, it's not just nameless, faceless people that die in these incidents. These were real people with real lives. And in this case, this shooter actually took the life of people who... Anyway, let's go over this. Keir Stewart was an Iraq war veteran, father of two, and he was accompanying a friend to the clinic when he got gunned down.
29 years old.
Yeah, he actually survived Iraq and comes home only to be killed here. After experiencing the horrors of real war, he comes back here and has to suffer this. Jennifer Markovsky was a 36-year-old Colorado Springs woman. She also was accompanying a friend to the clinic. So far now, we're talking about people who are helping their friends out.
Who have children.
Yeah, these are people who have kids. They're family people. They're an Iraqi war veteran. We're talking about people who are good, solid citizens.
Everyday people.
And they just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And the police officer who was killed is named Garrett Swayze. And he was married. He had two children. And he was a co-pastor at Hope Chapel, an evangelical church in Colorado Springs. And before he became a police officer, he was actually a nationally ranked ice dancing champion.
Yeah.
So,
cool.
which is actually very, very cool. And then he decided to pursue a career in law enforcement. Was the nicest guy, apparently, would stop and help people out even off duty.
Yeah.
And he reports to this, active shooter scene at the clinic, and he gets shot and killed. Now, this is a man who, as a co-pastor at the Hope Chapel, in all likelihood, was himself pro-life.
Possibly.
Probably would have agreed completely with the idea that abortion is not necessarily something that is morally the correct thing to do.
Right.
And yet he goes there, does his job, and is killed by a crazed madman who's there because he thinks that Planned Parenthood is doing things that it's not even doing.
Yeah.
Now, that leads me actually to a very important point here. Abortion is legal. There is nothing wrong with getting an abortion in the eyes of the law. It is a right that any woman in the United States has legally. You don't have to go into a dark, shadowy room and pay somebody under the table and crawl around in the dark to get an abortion.
I don't know if you've read some of the same stories I have about women before Roe v. Wade and
oh my God, horror stories.
Terrifying things that they had to go through.
Exactly. So Roe v. Wade changed all of that and it made it legal. Now, there are people who don't agree that it should be legal. Well, fine, but I want to make a point about that. Laws evolve and change to fit our existing customs, our evolving moral choices, and reflect our increasing knowledge. Laws are not some absolute truth that exist through time and space as though they were laid down by some deity or something. Laws are man-made.
Right.
And they are man-changed. Laws that were in force 100 or 1,000 years ago have changed because we've changed.
Right.
So holding on to those ancient and outmoded laws is itself a symbol of ignorance and de-evolution, right? Because man evolves and changes.
Right. The law is a living, breathing thing.
Precisely, just like language is.
Right.
Right? We don't speak Aramaic anymore.
We don't speak we don't speak regular English anymore. I don't even...
But
Especially not where I'm from.
The point being that it's an evolving, growing,
Right.
living thing, just like we are. And if you don't believe in or like a law, it can be changed. That is what the legislative branch of our government does all day, every day.
Right.
They create, they modify, and in some cases, they actually delete laws.
Yes.
That's what they do. It's written into our Constitution how to do this.
We can do a whole episode on how many stupid laws have come and gone in our nations. Ones that are still in the books that nobody enforces anymore because it makes no sense to.
They're called outmoded laws.
Exactly.
Right? And some of them are absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, they're...
Use
that's
the
why,
buggy whips, and
yeah.
you can't have a duck on your head when you cross the state border, and all kinds of nonsense.
Your wife drives, the husband has to sit on the front with flags waving. Come on.
Precisely. So, anyway, point being that if you don't agree with Roe v. Wade, if you don't agree that abortion is something that should be legal, I have no argument with your opinion on that matter.
Nope.
And you are perfectly free, and in fact, I wish you would take action on your part to convince the rest of the majority of the United States who agrees right now that abortion should be legal.
Right.
That's where America stands right now. We are a representative republic. We also call ourselves a democracy in terms of majority rules.
Right.
And I'm not going to sit here and get on a big thing about, well, if you don't like it, then go somewhere else. You have a voice, use it.
Right.
Right?
That's what your vote is for.
Exactly. But I want to now go to the dark side of this, right? Because this man, Robert Deere, who went in and did this killing, was incited to do so by hateful rhetoric, false information against Planned Parenthood. And there are people who did that. That doesn't just exist out on the airwaves or in social media. Somebodies take the time to put together, for example, that video about Planned Parenthood and how they sell baby parts, completely not true, complete misrepresentation of the facts, and done on purpose, admittedly done on purpose,
yes,
in order to paint Planned Parenthood in the worst possible light so as to cut off its federal funding. Now, is that a legitimate way to go about making social change? Of course it's not. It's underhanded, it's deceitful, and in this particular case, I'm making a point that it incites terrorism. And I want to talk about that.
Not to be funny, not to really make a joke, but it's really the video that was ripped apart and not, as they say, the babies are ripped apart. No, the video is ripped apart. The guy's even come out and said, I've made
precisely.
This up. Yeah.
That's it, precisely. Now, it is only a few people, by the way. We're not talking about a lot of people, some big, vast conspiracy. We're talking about very specific people who take very specific actions to spread deceit and lies in order to create a mindset in the American population that is a false mindset. It shouldn't exist because it's based on lies. I have some experience with having a mindset that's based on lies. My life was lived for decades on lies.
Right.
I have a bit of a chip on my shoulder when people manipulate others on purpose to forward some agenda that serves them rather than serves the common good, which is why I get rather passionate about this. And when it comes to inciting violence and actual killing against people, you have crossed lines that you cannot cross back. Yeah. There are people who are dead now because of this. So let's talk about it. We're talking about domestic terrorism, and that is a word that has been avoided in this particular case, which is why I'm bringing it up. Now, I looked up terrorism today to be clear about this, and I want to go over this with you. The use of violence and intimidation in the pursuit of political aims. The word terrorism originally came from the idea of the government terrorizing its citizens, a la the Reign of Terror in post-revolution France. That was actually a thing, and at its worst time, it was called the Terror. And they killed tens of thousands of people in post-revolution France because they were afraid that there were counter-revolutionaries who were going to undo what the revolution had done and try to put the monarchy back into power. And way too many people were killed in the passion and heat of that reign of terror. From that, we get this idea of using violence and terror tactics in order to forward a political agenda. This word terrorism, just to talk about it a little bit more, has actually been very, very difficult to define, but there are some characteristics to it which I found in looking through what the UN, the United Nations, has been debating on this since the 90s in terms of how to define it. One of the things on this is that criminal acts, terrorism is called here, criminal acts intended or calculated to provoke a state of terror in the public, a group of persons, or particular persons for political purposes. These acts are not justifiable under any circumstances, whatever the considerations of a political, philosophical, ideological, racial, ethnic, religious, or any other nature could be used to justify them. The acts themselves are not justifiable. There's just no reason, for example, to walk into a Planned Parenthood with an assault rifle and mow people down. It is an unjustifiable act, which makes it, and it's a calculated act, which makes it fit these characteristics of terrorism. But there's more. Terrorism is designed to induce terror and psychic fear through the violent victimization and destruction of non-combatant targets. You're literally mowing down innocent people.
Right.
Such acts are meant to send a message. The purpose of terrorism is to exploit the media in order to achieve maximum attainable publicity as an amplifying force in order to influence the targeted audience so as to forward a short or medium-term political agenda. You're actually trying to get the media, and clearly it has worked in this case, social media included, to talk about and get all riled up and upset about the actions that have been carried out.
Yeah, even look at us. We can be considered some type of media.
Very much so. Very much so. And finally, in terms of characteristics of terrorism, each act of terrorism is a performance. That's in quotes, a performance, devised to have an impact on many large audiences. So this man going in and doing this is not just some random act of violence. It's a person making a statement with an effort to get the media to forward a message that will then incite fear in an intended target audience. In this case, those who would go and use Planned Parenthood for any reason. That is terrorism. So who are terrorists? Anyone who does this.
Yeah.
That's a terrorist.
Yep.
And I'm going to point out right now that the only reason I believe, and this is opinion, that this man, Robert Deere, is not being called a terrorist is because he's a white man. The double standard of white privilege in this country has never been more obvious to me than when I see the news talking about this man being, what was he described as?
A gentle loner.
Right.
With violent tendencies.
Yeah. So
are you fucking kidding me?
Within 24 hours of the shooting, this is how this white man is being described. Whereas if he had been a Muslim, a black man, even, I think, a Hispanic, I don't think anybody else would have had a problem at all in the media calling him a terrorist, a domestic terrorist.
A terrorist, a thug, anything.
Exactly.
A dirty minority, anything.
But certainly not a troubled loner? Was that what they...
Gentle.
Disturbed? Gentle loner.
Gentle.
Okay.
They use the word
gentle. Right. So,
and you know what?
I just want to...
Before we go on, I want to say who fucking wrote gentle loner.
Please.
I would like to point out who fucking said that. The news outlet who wrote that he is a gentle loner is actually from the New York Times. And they said, acquaintances described Robert L. Deere Jr., who was arrested in a fatal rampage at Planned Parenthood Center in Colorado, as a gentle loner who occasionally unleashed violent acts towards neighbors. I'm sorry, if somebody occasionally released violent acts towards me, I'm not calling him a damn gentle loner. I don't care what the hell he looks like. I don't care if he looks like my grandfather. I don't care if it is my grandfather. He's not a gentle loner. And any news outlet who puts that nonsense in there without putting quotes around it, no.
Exactly.
I'm so
Ted
upset.
Cruz took great pains quickly after the shooting to try to distance himself and the right from Deer's actions by saying it's also been reported that he was registered as an independent and a woman and transgendered leftist activist.
What?
Yeah, he actually, Ted Cruz, one of my most favorite people in politics, actually had the nerve to distance himself from this by accusing Robert Deer of being a transgendered leftist activist. And if that is not the most duplicitous, nonsensical rhetoric I have heard in a very long time.
It's got to be... Well...
Right? He can't own it. He can't own it. He can't own the fact that his words actually have an effect on people.
Well, we're going to mention the Colorado Republican.
Well, that's very much right here. Colorado State Representative Joanne Windholz. Now, she goes on Facebook, and, this woman's Facebook posting is about the ultimate blame the victim that you can get to. She says here that she forwards the notion that they're selling baby parts by saying free speech has brought to light the insidious selling of baby body parts, and says Planned Parenthood has no shame. These facts and overall mission of the abortion industry would easily send anyone over the hill who wasn't rational.
You freaking...
Thank you, Joanne, for justifying criminal murder.
Okay, Colorado people, we fucking voted this woman. Somebody voted for this goddamn woman. Are you freaking kidding me?
She further says in this Facebook rant of hers, the war on women is what Planned Parenthood began with Margaret Sanger, who was, one of the founders of Planned Parenthood, right?
Yeah.
And it has turned into a war on the family, especially children. It has changed children from a blessing to a commodity, making it very hard to consider ourselves to be a civilized, respectful, rational society. She then goes on to say, violence is never the answer, but we must start pointing out who is the real culprit.
Fuck
the
you,
true
Joanne.
Instigator of this violence and all violence at any Planned Parenthood facility is Planned Parenthood themselves. Violence begets violence. So, Planned Parenthood, you stop the violence inside your walls.
Wow, she capitalized that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I would love to see what would happen if she dared to say something like this about rape victims.
Okay.
This is disgusting, and Joanne Windholz is a sickening representative of the religious right.
And you know what? Talking about victim blaming, have you seen some of these Twitter random people
I don't go there.
No, I'd like to go there. Please.
Go for it.
Here's just a few samplings of some Twitter wonderful people out there, and I'm gonna say their names because they put it out there. Whatevs. So Ryan at Slyfly and Hi, fantastic, says no sympathy for any pregnant female who was injured in the Planned Parenthood shooting. That was there to get an abortion. She deserved it. Fuck you, Ryan. Here's Brian Warner at Brian Warner 775. Planned Parenthood shooter has done more in one day to save black babies than Black Lives Matter has done in the last several months. Fuck you too, sir. This is one of my favorite. This guy, his name is Tranny Hunter.
Wow.
At Heroes Lives Matter, or Matt1. We should terminate the 500,000 adult female humans. They could have protected sex, but they're too lazy and slutty. David J. Goodwin at David J. Goodwin 1. Active shooter, Colorado Planned Parenthood. I would think this brave hero is saving innocent baby lives. He called him a goddamn hero.
Wow.
These are like other human beings who live every day with us, breathe our air.
I have a very hard time with tolerance and understanding of such viewpoints because they incite terrorism. They incite violence. And these voices, they're awful people. People like Joshua Feuerstein, this guy who originally started the whole anti-Starbucks cup.
Red cup. He's that dill hole who doesn't know how to film himself landscape with the fucking red hat who feels like he needs to shout everything he says.
This is a clip of something that he posted and then actually took down, but has been mirrored, and it is something that was most certainly heard by people like Robert Deere. And if there are future instances of violence against Planned Parenthood, we have people such as this to thank for it. Here's the clip.
So let me get this right. Tonight, America's crying about an old lion named Cecil that was killed by some dipwad who cut his head off and left his body there. But check this out. Planned Parenthood has hunted down millions and millions of little innocent babies, stuck a knife into the uterus, cut them, pulled them out, crushed their skull with forceps, ripped their body apart, sold their tissue, and threw them bleeding into a trash bin. And you guys are crying about a lion, but what about the babies? You know what I call that? I call that being a hypocrite. I say tonight, we punish Planned Parenthood. I think it's time that abortion doctors should have to run and hide and be afraid for their life instead of some hunter. Both are wrong, but one is a lion. The other are humans. Stand up for humans.
Now, I don't know
Fuck this guy.
how you live with yourself inciting people to do things like this.
Very Christianly loving kind of stuff is what I'm getting from this asshat.
I would actually like to know, I guess, of my listeners out there who support this sort of thing, if there are anybody out there who's listening to this who supports this sort of thing. For God's sake, please tell me why, because I don't understand. I think I've made it pretty clear now that I am not for this because of the fact that it results in killing people, and I really can't get behind anybody who pushes such an agenda. But if there is anybody who's listening to this, I would very much be interested in understanding where it is that morality comes from, because it just is completely irrational as far as I'm concerned. And I don't want to live in a world where that sort of thing becomes the majority opinion, for sure. I don't believe that it is the majority opinion. I believe that this is a very vocal minority of people who, quite frankly, are mentally ill. And I think that their irrationality has gone far beyond any moral limits. And they are way off the deep end and are the very worst of what religion has to offer. So I don't believe that that is all that religion has to offer, and I don't blame Christianity for this. I don't blame any one single source for this. I'm just looking at the fact that it exists. Mass shootings happen more often now than at least in the media representation, than it seems that they have been going on in a very, very, very long time. And if we have a vocal minority of the population who's inciting this kind of violence, I think those people need to be held responsible for the words that they're saying and the hateful rhetoric that they're pushing, because there are even more mentally unstable people out there, like Robert Deere, who take those words seriously and act on them. And that is unacceptable in a civilized society, and something has to be done about it.
You may not blame religion, Chris, but I sure as hell do.
I understand.
I sure as hell do.
I know.
Because it's not humanist people who are standing outside Planned Parenthood calling people who work there, calling people who go there for birth control, for STD checks, murderers and racists and all sorts of vile, disgusting things.
Right.
And it's the religious people. And you know what, they are more than free to have their opinions about things. Personally, I don't agree with capital punishment. I think it's barbaric whether we put a needle in somebody's arm or if we chop their head off.
I happen to agree with you on that.
Am I going to shoot people to somehow stop them killing people? That makes no rational sense. And I think any good person knows that. And I think a lot of Christians and a lot of Muslims and a lot of Jewish and anybody who is against abortion thinks that. But you're right. It's these whack jobs who listen to people like asshat, red hat say stuff like that
Right.
And they see what kind of attention that the media is going to give somebody who does, and they become terrorists.
Exactly.
And I absolutely blame religion.
Well, I look to the individuals involved. Ted Cruz, I'm talking about you.
I got an email from him asking me for money. I'm kind of pissed off about it.
Josh Feuerstein, I'm looking at you.
Ass hat, red hat.
I'm saying you guys need to be responsible for the words that you're using, not run and hide when something tragic happens as a result of the words that you use. Salon, which has a varying degree of popularity among some of our listeners, put out an article this last Monday talking about something that I thought needed to be brought up. And I'm not going to read the entire article. In fact, I'm not going to actually read from the article. I'm just going to talk about the point of it. Mary Lee brings up a point here that is an important one. I think we're all familiar with the idea or have seen exposed in the media ministers, priests, and politicians who were very, very homophobic. Turns out that those people themselves are closet homosexuals.
Yeah.
And it turns out that, according to this article, upwards of 40% of women in the United States have had an abortion. That could include anything from going to see an OBGYN to the morning after pill.
Right.
That's 40%, 4 out of 10. That's a lot.
I'm a part of that. I've taken the morning after pill.
Well, I've certainly been part of that myself.
Yep.
Not directly, of course, but my ex-wife in the Sea Org had an abortion, and I've certainly known lots of people who have.
Right.
But a point being made in this article, and again, I think a very important one is, how many of those protesters standing outside Planned Parenthood screaming and yelling at these poor women and slut-shaming them have themselves had abortions? Well, in looking at this, I think that there's two possible groups here. One percentage of them being people who have had abortions and are so, because it goes against their religious beliefs or their moral upbringing or whatever, feel so shamed about what they do that they feel they have to take a stand now. And they do so in a fairly obnoxious and really over-the-top way.
Oh, so you're talking about the women who are protesting outside of these clinics who have had an abortion. Okay, and their justifications for such.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. So here they are out there screaming and yelling at women who've gone in. But the reason they're doing that is not because they're pro-life. It is because they are guilty of having done it themselves. Mm-hmm. And, this is as old as mankind that we do this to each other, right? We have sinned, and then we become the moral superiors of everybody else to keep them from engaging in the same level of sin. Well, it's all a matter of opinion.
Yeah, well, sometimes it's not necessarily a negative thing. I mean, we listen to our parents who screwed up because they say, look, I did the same thing, I messed up, and this is the consequences. And that's what some people, I feel, are thinking that they're doing.
Well, and that's exactly my point, because it's totally fine with me if they do that from a moral high ground of admitting that that's what they did.
Right.
But these women that the salon is talking about are people who are not admitting that is their position.
That's
These are not reformed criminals saying, don't be a sinner like me.
Yeah.
These are women who are hiding the fact that they ever had an abortion. These are women who have families or women, who are very deeply religious.
They want to hide the fact that it happened.
Exactly.
But I will tell you this. I've been to some protests at Planned Parenthood before, and you will have occasionally a person out there who's, oh, well, I had an abortion. It was a terrible experience and I regret it for the rest of my life. They'll tell you whether or not they're being truthful. I don't know. But they always do have those spattering of women who have had an abortion and they regretted it for whatever reason. I don't know their story. I'm not going to judge them. Maybe they did have an abortion and they completely regretted it afterward. And for that, I feel sorry for them.
Completely. I'm not judging them because they had an abortion. I'm judging them because they are judging others.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And they go out in a rather hypocritical fashion, I think.
Right.
By not admitting that's where their guilt comes from.
Right.
That's where their violent rhetoric comes from.
Yeah.
And these are people who are, some of these protesters. If you haven't seen this with your own two eyes, it is scary. It's intimidating.
Yeah.
It is.
It's not for the faint of heart. And it's not for ones who are going to become volatile back. Whenever I go to protest, whether it's for Planned Parenthood, whether it's against the Westboro Baptist Church, doesn't matter what it is, I always try to have a group come with me who know what they're getting into and who aren't going to attract the cops. That's just what I really don't want. But yeah, these protesters, especially at Planned Parenthood, are brutal. They have mostly fake pictures of aborted babies. The one here in Denver, the protesters there will actually put out doll parts, and they used to throw them at people because there's a big fence around the Planned Parenthood here in Denver, so they can't be in women's faces, unfortunately for them. But they will put baby parts. I've seen or I've heard of people using ketchup to freak people out about blood.
Right, tomato sauce, that sort of thing.
Tomato sauce. Yeah. And you just get called the worst things.
Right.
And I can only imagine a woman who's going there who had a miscarriage, who needs to go there for a D&C, which is a procedure where they need to remove the fetus.
Mm-hmm.
And they're already devastated that they lost a wanted child. Sometimes for the first time, sometimes for the third, fourth, fifth time. Right. And they have to walk past these people who tell them they're murderers, they're evil, they're horrible people, and they have to see all these images, and it's just a horrifying experience.
Exactly. Another percentage of these women are not necessarily there because they're on a guilt trip. They're just flat out hypocrites.
Oh, yeah.
And that's another percentage of these people that we need to talk about, because there you have somebody who will drive out of state to go get an abortion.
Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then come back and scream and shout, right? And that's just pure hypocrisy,
mm-hmm.
right? And that's in the same vein as the politicians or the priests who are homophobic, but then themselves are getting hookups in the confessional booth or in the local restroom, right, or the back alley.
Yeah.
So that's one of the. I'm not accusing all people who are against abortion of being dishonest hypocrites.
Yeah.
I'm saying a certain percentage of these people are. It just works out to be that way because of human nature.
There's thousands of different reasons why those people are standing out there. I will say about 98% of them are probably religiously motivated.
I wouldn't actually put it that high, personally.
Oh, I would. I totally would. We're going to disagree on that one.
I think the percentage of people who are out here because of this hypocrisy is actually probably higher than most people think.
Yeah, but I think the hypocrisy is probably rooted in the religion.
Fair enough.
And I have definitely seen and met and talked to humanist for life, people who are secular humanist and they are pro-life. I don't get it. And I don't want to tell people they're doing secular wrong, so you're doing secular wrong. But, whatever. They have their argument, fine. So that's why I say 98%, because I really don't think... But I've never seen a humanist protester outside of Planned Parenthood.
No, you don't see that.
Unless it's my group counter-protesting.
Right. Regardless of a person's motivations, they certainly have the right to free speech, and they certainly have the right to go out and protest whatever they want. I'm not denying anybody that right. I'm merely saying that I think people should be upfront and open about why they believe what they believe or why they are doing what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And I think that hypocrisy and the percentage of people who fall into that category have moral issues that they need to grapple and deal with. And I think if they did, that they might find their lives actually to be a little bit simpler and the hate to be a little bit less and their rhetoric to maybe be a little bit less charged up, because they would not be there on some kind of guilt trip. It brings out the worst in us when we act that way and when we do things for those kind of motivations. It's much better to just live life openly and honestly and just kind of like say how you feel and why you feel that way and just be open about that.
I can't imagine the kind of ball of hate within someone to do something, feel bad about it, and then shame others for doing the same thing.
Oh, completely. I mean, some of those tweets you were reading earlier, my God, I feel so sorry for those people. Their lives must be horrible.
They live their lives like this. Like, they carry around this ball of evil hatred, and how can they ever be happy? I just don't understand it.
No, it's really, really bad. And I have to go back to the fact that so much of this is based on deceit and lies.
Yeah.
And it is unconscionable. It is unforgivable that those lies have been put out there in the first place about reproduction, women's rights. There is a tradition of misogyny in almost every mainstream religion that has carried on as a thread all the way through to present time, which we fight against.
Yeah.
That misogyny causes a mindset to exist in people who have these religious notions that women are living in some kind of sin just by the fact that they're women, and that their reproduction rights have nothing to do with them. It is up to a man to decide these things. It is up to a book to decide these things that is 2,000 years plus old. And that is just wrong. It has just got to be called out for what it is. It's wrong. Men and women are equal in every way. This misogyny has got to go away.
You have no idea how offensive my vagina is on an everyday basis. Just me walking around with the damn thing. How could I? No, and yet, almost every man out there kind of wants to get into one. So, you know what?
How's that supposed to work?
Every politician wants to be in my vagina. Are you kidding me? It's a great place to be. I've been told. But I try to make jokes about it just because when I'm upset, when I'm angry, I try to make jokes to make myself laugh because. Right. When you have this much negativity that we just have to deal with on a daily basis, it's my defense mechanism. It's the way that I try to get through it. But in all honesty, attacks on Planned Parenthood, going to protest, watching people get shot, Dr. Tiller, the whole documentary about Dr. Tiller, any person who works there, any provider who works there who is intimidated on a daily basis, it's offensive to me on a very deeply personal level just because I happen to be a female. And I've gone to Planned Parenthood before for many different things. I've gone there for the morning after pill after being raped. I've gone there to protest these protesters because I have friends and family who have had to go there for all sorts of different reasons. Right. And it's incredibly amazing to me to see these women, these men still get up every day and go to work and be there for us. And these legislators who fight for us. And these women with me, these men with me who go there and fight for everybody. And I am completely grateful. We just had a day of thanks. Here it is. Here's my thanks.
Exactly. So that's the protest here. In the end, the hateful rhetoric against Planned Parenthood and the lies about it are what need to stop. And that's the message I want to get out there.
And also, by the way, you anti-abortion people who stand out there and tell people that they can go to their pregnancy crisis center, stop lying about what those fucking places do. They do nothing. There are literally stories where they tell these pregnant girls to go to this pregnancy go to these pregnancy centers or whatever, crisis centers, and they get there and they have an ultrasound, and these people aren't even medically qualified to read a damn ultrasound.
Really?
They do not help. They maybe give them a box of diapers and maybe a box of canned food. Literally no help.
Wow.
So stop with that bullshit.
And please stop with the lies and the deceit. If you're going to be against abortion, I cannot fault you for that. You perfectly,
I can't touch you.
You're perfectly okay with me that you have that opinion and that you have that stance. That's not what this show is about. It is not about trying to make you not have that opinion. My point is, do not use lies or deceit to forward your message as to why you think that way. And please, if you are pro-life, actually demonstrate that you are for life by knocking off the violent rhetoric. It doesn't help at all. It only makes things worse.
And if you're only pro-life for those 9 months, how dare you? How dare you? And if you're pro-baby, pro-fetus more than you are pro-woman, how dare you?
Yeah, there's the hypocrisy is not appreciated. This week there's a
yes.
meetup.
So our local women's secular group here in Denver, I was co-founder to this. There's another co-founder. I did not get her permission to say her name. But
then we won't say it.
But she listened. She's an amazing person, and I love you so much. She has decided she wants to put up a rally and visual in support of Planned Parenthood. We're actually going to do it here at the Planned Parenthood in Stapleton. It's Saturday, December 19th. We're going to be there at 7 in the morning. I will probably be there at 6:30 in the morning on a winter morning because I love you, lady. So yeah, we're going to be there.
Burr.
If anyone can or will or know anything about going, we welcome you to be there. We welcome peaceful people to be there with us.
There will be no violent rhetoric against the protesters who are protesting the Planned Parenthood.
We are there in support of Planned Parenthood and the people, not just the women, the people, men and women, and even children who need to go there for whatever reason. We are in support of them.
Good.
So, yeah, no fuck this guy signs, even though, God, I want to make one so bad.
Right. We will control ourselves because
So
it's important that the discussions on this matter and that the debates on this matter be civil and sensible, and that they actually use some degree of logic and reason, because it's the only way we're going to have any forward progress on this.
Right. And if you needed or wanted to know any more information about this rally that we're going to be doing, you can find it on Meetup at the Denver Atheist Meetup group. It's also on the Secular Sisterhood Meetup group. I will say this, Secular Sisterhood, we have made that group to be just for people who identify as women. That was something our group decided a long time ago. So I am sorry if you have a penis. I apologize. Unless you identify as women. You know what? I'm not going to judge. But
you won't find me on that meetup.
and
I'm not there.
Some people don't like it that we did that, and I apologize. You can yell at me all you want. But if you wanted to know more information on that, you can actually find it at the Denver Atheist Meetup.
Fair enough. All right. Well, that has been our serious talk, sensible talk, I hope, for the most part, in regards to Planned Parenthood.
I got a little bit more serious than I thought I was going to, but, whatevs.
Yeah, well, that is, it's a serious topic. It deserves a serious discussion. It deserves attention, and it needs to change. Yep. It really needs to change. And so we roll back into our holidays now. And in fact,
our negativity sandwich.
That's right. Our negativity sandwich has taken, we've reached the sliced bread portion of it now. So we have a message for our hateful listener out in Kansas.
Our grouchy bitch in Kansas.
That's right.
She knows we're laughing because we love her very, very much.
So very much. And we are going to be ending this holiday episode with our little rendition here of a holiday classic standard. Oh, the weather outside is frightful,
but the fire is so delightful. And since we've no place to go, let it snow, let it snow, let it snow. We love you, Kansas.
See you guys next week.
Bye, guys. Thanks.